Rashomon. One evening, a young man was sitting under Rashomon, waiting for the rain to stop. Despite the gate facing Susako Avenue, a main street, there was no one else around. This was because many unattended corpses had been brought to the gate, and after the evening, people avoided coming near due to the eerie atmosphere of the place. His unsettling custom arose because Kyoto at the time was severely devastated by disasters such as earthquakes, famine, and fires, and no one paid attention to repairing the gate, leaving it in a state of disrepair. The young man absent-mindedly watched the rain fall, while worrying about the large pimple on his right cheek. Even if the rain stopped, he didn't know where to go. He was one of those who was adversely affected by the decline of Kyoto City. He had been fired by his employer a few days ago. He thought he had to find a way to survive, but he had no idea. He didn't have the courage to become a thief. The twilight gradually grew dim. He looked around for a place where he could sleep without being seen by other people and without getting wet in the rain. And he found a ladder leading to the gate tower. Then he began to climb the ladder. A few minutes later, the young man was holding his breath halfway up the ladder, peering at the upper floor. Contrary to his expectation that there were nobody but corpses, the presence of light suggested that someone was inside. He carefully climbed to the top rung of the ladder and looked inside. As he had heard in rumors, several bodies lay in eternal silence within the gate tower. He covered his nose with his hand because of the terrible smell, but in the next moment, he forgot to cover his nose. The sight before him awoke strong emotions and deprived him of his sense of smell. What his eyes captured was a single person crouching among the corpses, an elderly woman with white hair, short and thin, wearing a cypress-colored kimono with a face resembling that of a monkey. She held a torch in her right hand and stared at the face of a certain corpse. Judging by the long hair, the corpse appeared to be that of a woman. He was so overwhelmed by fear and curiosity that he almost forgot to breathe. Then, the old woman began to pull out the hair of the corpse. It seemed that the hair could be easily pulled out. As the hair was pulled out one by one, the young man's fear gradually faded from his heart. At the same time, a strong hatred toward the old woman began to grow. This hatred was not only directed at the old woman but at all the evils in the world. And if someone had asked him at that moment, would you rather become a thief or starve to death, he would have chosen to starve without hesitation. He leapt up to the upper floor. Then, placing his hand on the hilt of his sword, he walked toward the old woman. The old woman was startled and tried to run away.
Hey, where are you going?
He blocked her path and grabbed her arm as she tried to push him away and escape. Then he pulled her down to the floor. He suddenly let her go, drew his sword, and said to her, while showing the sword,
Tell me what you were doing. Otherwise, with this sword.
But she did not answer. Her hands trembled, and with her eyes wide open, she remained silent. Seeing this, he realized that her life was clearly in his hands, and that feeling softened his hatred. He spoke to her in a slightly gentler tone.
I'm not a government official, just a passerby. So I don't intend to punish you for your actions. I'm just asking what you are doing.
She opened her eyes even wider and stared intently at his face. Her eyes were sharp like those of a predatory bird. She moved her lips, which almost seemed to merge with her nose, as if she were chewing something. And a faint voice came from deep in her throat.
With her hairs, I was thinking of making a wig.
He was disappointed because her answer was ordinary and boring against his expectations, and that disappointment stirred his hatred toward the old woman once again. Then the old woman, as if sensing that hatred, said something like this.
Of course, pulling hair from a corpse is wrong. But all the corpses here are those who deserved it in some way. In fact, the woman whose hair I was pulling deceived many people by selling dried snakes as dried fish. Many samurai would always buy from her, saying her dried fish was delicious. If she were alive now, she would have continued selling it. I don't think what she did was evil, because she did it out of necessity to survive. Similarly, what I did was also something I had to do to survive, so I don't think it was evil. She understood very well that what I did to her was out of necessity, so I think she would forgive me.
The young man listened to her story with a cold detachment. As he listened, a sense of courage welled up in his heart. This courage was the very courage he had lacked earlier when he was under the gate. And this courage was the exact opposite of the courage he had had when he tried to capture the old woman earlier. At this moment, he was not only free from any hesitation about whether he should become a thief or not, but the thought of starving to death was out of the question to him.
Do you really think so?
When the old lady finished speaking, he asked in a mocking tone. He grabbed the collar of her kimono and said sharply,
Then you won't resent me if I rob you, right? I'm doing it out of necessity just to survive.
He tore off her kimono and kicked the old woman, who clung to his legs, to the floor. And in an instant, he tucked the kimono under his arm and dashed down the ladder into the depths of the night. It was soon after that the old woman lifted her naked body from among the corpses. She crawled to the entrance of the ladder and looked down beneath the gate. Outside, there was nothing but pitch black night. Nobody knows where the young man has gone.